So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have another great esports talk session. And before I introduce our special guest and our title, I'd like to just do a quick announcement, and that is to thank you for viewing and for leaving comments, liking us on our social media outlets. And without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we can't stress that enough. All right. Well, today we are going to get into it. And today's topic is business and esports in an academic lens. And with us today, we have Justin Jacobson. Justin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. And we're excited to have you, of course. So, Justin, I mean, let's just get right into it, I guess, So tell us a little bit about just your esports background, your gaming background. What is it that you're doing?
Well, yeah, so I'm an esports and entertainment attorney. So I work with professional athletes, musicians, fashion designers, as well as pro gamers, streamers, content creators, teams, brands, and really any kind of company working in the space. So I work with them in their business and legal needs. So I help with reviewing their contracts, if they have any trademarks, copyrights, visas, LLC stuff, just really anything related to their career. I kind of act as a consultant and help them develop their brand. I've been a lifelong gamer. I've been in the entertainment and sports space for nearly a decade as an attorney. And for the last 5 years, I've really kind of expanded into the esports space and working with different people in the space and learning the ins and outs and the different stakeholders and, really trying to take my love for gaming and entertainment in general and kind of transition that into my profession.
Very cool. Very cool. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, it sounds like, you've had to recently make this transition. Esports hasn't been around for decades in that sense, or at least the space that's warranting a position like what you're doing in the field or in the industry. And it's great to, again, if someone like yourself who has been a lifelong gamer and learner of that too, is into a space like that, you essentially understand it from another lens, if you will, to kind of get more deeper into the the issues that do arise, right? Those conflict that does happen, and to be protected with your guidance.
Yeah, I think that the same way you have these more traditional entertainment and music and fashion and modeling and TV and movies, like these
Right.
more traditional worlds have professionals who assist them. And as you
Mm.
said, in the last few years, like esports and the pro gaming world has, rapidly grown. The prize pools have grown. The amount of
Right.
money that people are making has grown. The brand support and partnerships has grown. So with that, you have more responsibilities and you need to handle things properly. And that's where professionals come in.
Right, 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 right. And so when you were essentially going to school, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about your educational background.
So I went to undergrad at George Washington University in DC, and I studied sociology there, knowing I was going to go on to law school. So I went to Turo Law Center in Long Island, and I was always going to be focused on the intellectual property and entertainment world. It was just kind of what I was born and bred in. And as I mentioned a few years ago, I really kind of stumbled onto and really kind of understood how big the pro gaming side of this world is. I've like I said, I've always played games from like Nintendo to Sega to N64. I have Xbox and PlayStation now, so I love StarCraft and StarCraft 2. So I've always had this as some part of my life. But the fact is that it was only later in my career did it start to become, part of my job.
Yeah, yeah, very, very cool. I mean, so in your background, your study, I mean, how much have you noticed is very similar or different to what you used to do in representation or working with clients in the entertainment sector to now moving into the esports, which has a great deal of value in entertainment, of course. How much of that has been a major transition and some that have just been very seamless?
I mean, I think that what was nice and why I feel like I'm able to succeed is that there's just a lot of similarities.
Mm,
The
mm,
same way you protect or approach a musician or fashion designer brand is similar to how you approach a gamer or a streamer building a team. Use the similar kind of social media outlets. All that's really changing is the content. You're releasing a music video or a song versus a YouTube video or stream or competing in a tournament, which is the same as like a concert.
mm,
So it's like there's a lot of similarities between the legal issues and trademarks and copyrights and these business matters. Whether you're a musician or a DJ or producer who's buying studio equipment and studio time and marketing and PR, or a gamer who's buying streaming equipment and his console and hiring graphic designers to make logos. So it's like there was just a lot of similarities there that I noticed. One of the big difference is really just kind of like I guess it's just non-sophistication or really just they just don't know. Like
right.
whereas most of these other traditional entertainment, everyone knows you get an agent or a manager when you want to make to the movies or become like an actress. It's like, oh, I need my agent.
Right.
So it's like this kind of buzz and the idea of these professionals is really kind of goes hand in hand with these worlds.
Mm.
So as esports and gaming is growing and getting more mainstream, you really kind of have to have the gamers and the people in it, the talent, really adopting it more and really understanding the value that they bring, which is the value that these other areas have already kind of accepted, for better or worse.
Ah, okay. Very interesting that you mentioned that. And so, just educate us a little bit more. So when, now you're seeing the pro scene of esports, and immediately we're now thinking, okay, I do need representation. I do need somebody that will help guide me and support me in a process that can get very hectic, or just things just move in a rapid pace where you now are entering a field where you're going 1,000 directions. Um, what is it that essentially you would do to essentially help bring perspective to that individual or to that team or to that management group?
I mean, I think it's just really kind of explaining, what's the short term and long term ramifications of what you're doing and what you're signing. And, you get into a situation where maybe you're, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're getting, what your dream is to get paid by a pro team to play games.
Right.
So, like, you might not be looking at the details and what your buyout clause is and certain things that might come into play later on. We the big highly publicized Tifu situation where you
Mm,
enter an agreement and you might not have really understood what your
mm,
long-term value would be. Where 2 years later or 6 months later something happens where you're a ninja and you play with Drake and Juju Smith and your numbers just become astronomical. And like, who would have thought 6 months before that happened that Ninja would be making 20-30 million dollars, like
right.
these kind of astronomical numbers.
Figures, right.
You would never know. So it's
No.
like that's what's so unique about this field is you have a game that's awesome today and doesn't exist tomorrow. Like
Mm,
I watched the whole H1Z1 thing where you
mm,
had this league, all these teams paid like $1 million buy-in, and then Fortnite came out and PUBG and it just nobody wanted to play it anymore. So you had these kids that were signed to a deal and maybe thought they were supposed to get X amount of money, but now the league doesn't exist. So, we can drop you. We don't have to pay, like you start to have all these problems. And if you would
right.
have at least understood, like, okay, well, if the league doesn't happen, I'm not going to make money and I should probably, hedge my bet or keep streaming or,
Right.
make
Right.
sure I have another job. Like,
Right. Right.
like you got to really understand how things play out. Like,
Yeah.
the most recent example is with Clayster. Like, he
Mm,
was on the Call of Duty winning champion team one day and then he was dropped the next. So it's like your contracts, and if you don't understand how they're structured, it's like, oh wow, like
yeah.
how do
Yeah.
I go from the top of the hill to like the free agency pile pretty quickly?
Right. Right. And that speaks about like high turnaround that in essence, yeah, it really puts, our pro players, if you will, that have been dedicating these hours and essentially building a base of followers or fans. And just to be dropped like that, I mean, now you start to think, did they even get representation to begin with? Um, it just sounds like either they probably didn't know and they just thought, hey, this all sounds great in this picture because this is a dream, quote unquote, and I want to pursue it, which I don't blame. But you're right. There are some potential areas that need to be explored to understand, okay, what does this really look like so that we're not putting ourselves in a position where we have to now, start all over, right? Or react.
Yeah, or just at least thinking that this was a possibility. I think most pros didn't think that they would be going from like 6 to 4, where from 5 to 4, and now
Right.
these teams that had maybe 6 or 7 kids with some subs now have 4 or 5 kids, and it's just like there's not like there's more teams. So if like you don't have a spot, like for a lot of these people, that might be the end of their career, and it just like happened. They didn't even know it was happening, and most of these kids sign 2-3 year kind of deals, and they thought they signed a great pearly white agreement, and
Mm,
if the team can terminate it whenever they want without any repercussions or any penalties or any early payment fees, then they may do it because at the end of the day, like this is a business, and it like goes back to the topic of the conversation and kind of what it's growing into, where the same way everyone in the NFL is like, oh, it's just a business, and like
right.
we know the play, like we know that the owners just kind of look at us as like salary cap hits and those kind of things. So it's like that's catching up.
Yeah. No, no, no. That makes total sense. And you do hear that, in the traditional sports end where, you could be, like you said, like an all-star on top of your game. And before you know it, you're either in the free agency or on the block and either getting traded or being possibly, dropped. And how does that happen, overnight or over, a very short period of time to now where you're at this state of confusion and now not knowing where to go next, which can be debilitating in some cases.
Yeah, and especially if you weren't prepared for it, like
Right.
maybe you just purchased a house or signed a new lease
Yeah.
on an
Gosh.
apartment or a car. Hey, you undertook like, okay, like I'm gonna get the salary next year. This season was great, like,
Right.
and then lo and behold, it wasn't like this decision was made a day before or even
Right.
probably a week before. Like
Right.
these conversations at companies like this take weeks, if not months,
Mm.
to decide on these things.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess not to, undersell it. You're right. It doesn't necessarily get done overnight. It's definitely something that is a process. just like anything. And yeah, and that's the part that really shakes anyone, right? When you receive the news, it hits you all at once. Um, and now you're thinking, holy smokes, or holy crap, like I need to move into that space of I need representation so that I can essentially now know what to do next, because you can put yourself in a financial bind, like what you just mentioned. Which, in essence, what is it that you would recommend, Justin, to essentially those who are aspiring to be in those spaces? What is the first thing? I mean, let's say you have this talent and it's been showing and showing each and every day, and it's improving to the point where you have that opportunity. What is the first thing you recommend for anybody to do?
I mean, I think that, if anyone anywhere is signing a contract, you should have someone who understands it review it for you. Like,
Mm,
I think that's like just pretty common sense. Like, I think it's common, but I just also think that
right,
people just think, oh, well, my friend who's, a lawyer, or my dad or my uncle, or what, like, they could just read it for me. And,
right.
what I've learned in my years, doing and looking at these agreements, from, the phases to Immortals to Call of Duty, Pro
Mhm.
League contracts, Overwatch League deals, to all the different tier one and small organizations, is, everything's different. Everyone's deal is a little bit different. Things are stated a different way. People have different things in different versions of their contract. So it's like,
Right.
you really need someone that understands what's going on and understands the general world. Because ultimately, if you sign an agreement, unless in like extremely rare cases, it's going to be enforceable. So it's like one of these things that if you are given the opportunity, you have to really understand what you're signing. I've
Right.
helped kids where I've seen agreements where it's like the team can drop them at any time and you can't terminate this ever. And
Mm,
just like what do you mean? Like, you
yeah.
can't terminate this at like it's just ludicrous that you would sign something that would say that.
Right.
But like, you're just so excited that someone wants to give you money to do what you want to do, that you overlook maybe to me and you, like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like,
Right.
I'm gonna sign something, especially if it's more than like a 6 months or three, like a short period of time, where
Right.
it's like, okay, like maybe it's a 2-3 months deal, like, okay, it could be bad. But if I signed a 2-3 year deal, five
Right.
year, these are gonna have a lot more implication and impact on your future career. 3 months, it might be a detour, but it's not going to be a career suicide where, if
Right.
you sign some 2-3 year deal with like an insane buyout, nobody may want to pay that. And unless the team is willing to, take less or just waive it, there might not be much you could do.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's so true. And what you have to do is essentially, yeah, weigh them all out. Those that time and money factor, right?
Exactly.
One year. I mean, yeah, in essence, 1 year. Okay, it's not bad, 12 months, but that 1 year, really, what does it really look like, right? You are having to sacrifice time and effort and energy from other spaces, like if you're pursuing your studies or your academics, and that 1 year can set you back easily, maybe even longer than that year, because of the given time that essentially words are written in this contract of how much time they're expected of you, to put in. And if it doesn't pan out, like either you get waived, yeah, you're in a situation where you've lost time from something that prevented you to your own personal growth. And then in essence, those funds that you were hopefully dreaming about didn't come into fruition.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, like, these have some of these contracts have streaming hour requirements and
Right.
promotional appearance requirements. And like you said, the things that you have to do. So if you're trying to balance a course load as well as be a pro gamer or streamer, you have to be aware of, what your time commitments are per the contract.
Right. Right. And that's the piece that I think we forget, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Justin. I think that's the part that I hear, that I think just because, let's say, this professional team has presented you this contract, that perhaps there's no room for negotiation, right? It's almost like you feel compelled, you have to sign because you're just grateful for the opportunity, and that's all fine and dandy. But the representation can do that level of talk where the negotiation can happen to actually meet your current lifestyle needs, so that you're not feeling like you're going to have to flip a 180.
Yeah, I mean, I realistically think that, they call it negotiation for a reason. Like if it was called take it or leave it, then you would just call it like it is. Like, I
Yeah.
always believe that the reasonable negotiation is fair. And as long as you come back with reasonable points, the worst they're going to say is no, this is what we're comfortable with. But I think for you to think that every offer is this is how it's going to be, like we're not room for negotiation, like, and if they do say that, that to me is kind of a red flag, an alarm to me, because
Mm.
I've never heard of a deal that's really not subject to some negotiation. It just, unless it's like the fairest, most even deal possible, or, you have just such huge leverage that, like, who wouldn't want to sign this? Like,
Mm.
it's such a privilege to be with, like, if Pepsi or Nike's like gonna bless you as whatever,
Yeah.
that's a different story. But, even those contracts are negotiable. So, I would say that you just have to understand, your value and maybe your potential value, because you don't
Mm.
really even know what your long-term value is going to be. No one could tell the future. No one could tell that the world was just going to shut down for, an indefinite period where all you're going to do is be able to stream and you're not going to be able to go to tournament, like, so
Right.
no one knows what's going to happen. And, a new game comes out that you become great at. Like,
Mm.
that's kind of how a lot of these streamers that have been around just rocket. Like they have a good steady thing, and then all of a sudden they get early on a game and are really good at it, and then other big streamers want to play with them, and
Right.
then you kind of grow out of nowhere. But like you never would have known that was going to happen.
Right.
So, but you kind of have to have people that can maybe predict this and build that into the contract, and or at least ask for it. No one's going to
Yeah.
drop you for asking for something. Like, that's
Yeah.
the way I look at it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jess. I mean, those are great words of wisdom there, because you're absolutely right. I mean, that you said a couple of things that just resonated with me. It's true. Yeah, do you yourself know your potential value, right? Like, what does that look like? Yes, we could possibly say, hey, this is what it looks like now, but what does that look like in the future? And when we say future, short-term time length and long-term time length, right? And then being able to say, hey, what are the chances that the game I so happen to be really good at is a game that, is the latest craze for everybody, and it trends that direction to the point of where you're getting, special invitations to play at certain levels and certain tournaments. And yeah, it goes so on and so forth at that point. But you're right. It's almost like you need those who are wary of what's going to happen in the future, because there's unknown factors there. And having something to a degree as a representation to say, hey, this is what we're concerned about because of the potential X factors that we have in the future, and also the client having this great deal of skill or talent, or this eye that could be very quick to learning other game titles. um, that right there is what puts you in a position where you feel more comfortable, more safe in signing that dotted line. But yeah, you're right. That's a good point about what you said earlier about maybe the red flag should tell you a sign if they're not open for negotiation. That's a sign typically, right? It's not going to be an easy relationship.
Right? Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
everything in this world is negotiable to an extent. Like if
Right.
you offer 1,000 and I ask for 1,000,000, that's probably not reasonable. But if
Yeah.
you offer 1,000, I ask for 1,250 or 1,300, like
Right.
that's I might get an extra 100 or 2 out of there. And
Yeah.
there you go. I just earned my fee and I did my job. And
There we go.
that's the way I look at it with my clients, where it's like, okay, like you may have to pay something now, but like I will earn it. The value will be there, whether you see it
Right.
now or 6 months from now. Like I'm pretty sure that the way I approach things is going to be a little bit different than how you approach them.
Right. No, absolutely. And then, Justin, share more. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've worked with clients, and I know you can't name any of them, and so I'm not asking for that. But has there been a particular case that you've been reading up on or working on that you've essentially, learned just some of the outcomes on where the direction is going, and a lot of these contracts that are being built at this moment? Um, do you mind shedding some light on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a big thing that I'm noticing is a lot of these teams have been kind of like taking heed of what was going on with the Tifu situation and,
Mm.
some of these more, private player kind of labor disputes. They're just kind of making sure that their agreements are a bit more, I would say longer and more elaborate. And they're making sure that they have clearly defined rights to what they want and that there's no, misunderstanding. And, I think that while that's good, it also puts, the player, the professional, the one who's getting signed in an even more, important position to understand what they're signing because these teams are learning from, which I don't know if it was saying were mistakes, but they're just kind of learning, and
Hmm.
as they're learning about what they need, what's going to be valuable to them, the contracts are kind of evolving a little bit and,
Mm.
making sure the name and likeness rights are as broad as they need to be, making sure they get certain releases and certain, indemnifications and, morals clauses. And, as you get bigger, the stuff you say on Twitch and, if you're in a match in a competition, they have implications, whether it's brands, not wanting to associate with you. If you're, say, the Dallas Fuel and, you lose a brand because you have, unprofessional comments from your players or whatnot,
Right. Right.
these are implications that like maybe, before franchise leagues or, certain things just they didn't matter as much. So it's, you definitely see the teams really learning and kind of filling in some of their deficiencies and, making sure that they're not going to get into trouble with, ambiguous language or,
Mm.
put themselves in a position that might, expose them to lawsuits, like
Right.
what
Right.
happened with the Phase situation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And what would you say to those that, I mean, again, when you were studying law, I mean, I don't think esports was where it is today. Um, what is it that you would say to those that are aspiring law students, or looking or are currently studying law and they're interested in this space? What is it that you invite them to look into now, if you could?
I mean, I think it's, really kind of get an understanding of, you know, kind of the business, how they make money. Because at the
Right.
end of the day, all of these entertainment and sports and like all of these consumer product lifestyle worlds are driven by, how do you monetize what you're doing?
Right.
How do you understand different streams of income? How do you maximize them? And I think that the biggest thing is really understanding how everyone makes money, and how do I build on these streams and how do I use the other parties and what is at my disposal. I think that as people continue to get more familiar with this and, as esports and gaming gets more mainstream, I think there'll be more, access to some of this information that unless you're really kind of in it day to day, you're probably not going to get. It's not the standard NFL or NBA PA agreements that you could download online.
Mm.
Team agreements are not just like out there really. You're not going to be able to Google Immortals and see their contract or,
Right.
see what CLG is giving their players. So it's like realistically, and then a lot of the information isn't out there. Like,
Mm.
what teams are, what these sponsorship deals actually look like. Like,
Mm.
whereas in other sports, you usually see, like, oh, it's a 3-year, 40, like,
Right.
and players' deals really aren't announced either. I
Mm.
think Cloud9 was one of the first, recently to announce, they're a multi-million-dollar deal with a player
Mm.
that you just let everyone know, hey, this is what his salary is, this is what he's getting, like, welcome to the team. And, that doesn't really exist at all anywhere.
Mm.
You have to be in it, and that's kind of what you have to learn, where it's like you have the academics understand
Mm.
how you earn income and how your clients and your talent earns income, and then you have to kind of the actual experience of seeing what the agreements look like, what the teams are willing to accept,
Mm.
what different, because different teams offer different stuff. Like
Right. Right.
that's, they have different facilities, they have different sponsors, they have different investors, owners. So,
Yeah.
everything is a little bit different. So you have to kind of see what their value is and being able to be like, okay, well, this team has a really great facility. So like we would love to have access to it. And then your brands that you work with will be at the facility or,
Mm.
so it's like you got to really understand the educational side as well as actually do it in the real world.
No, that's excellent bit of information there that you just shared, and thank you again. And so I wanted to touch on a point right there, and that is, what you said earlier about, teams not necessarily announcing player contracts. It's not until recent, like Team Liquid is one of the examples, right? Or Cloud9, excuse me, uh, that announced that. And so, for a professional team to announce something like that, I would think that that would just create, almost out of a need for competition, for other team managers to say, look, we need to start coming out with this to kind of show why it is that you want to be part of our team organization, and also understand that we've we've got exclusivities that you may want to be a part of and also root for, because hey, we are going after some of the most recognizable names, and at the same time trying to build and solidify our
And we
branding.
value them that much. We value them
Right.
so much that we're willing to make this commitment and
Right.
let it be publicly known, to be accountable. I think that's the biggest positive from it. Is you're
Yeah.
kind of holding this team accountable. It's like,
Right.
okay, well, you made a big tweet and a big deal about how much money you're giving this kid, so you better give it to him.
Right. Right. The accountability piece. I mean, that's huge, right? For any, for any factor, right? It's the piece that will essentially get everybody to say, hey, look what they're doing over there. And if it's got so many similarities to traditional sports, that's something that it just seems like to me naturally that's the next iteration, right? That's where esports will go into as time progresses. But again, we need people like yourself to essentially be there in that forefront, representing, the players or teams, what have you, to say, hey, look, what we want is just a way to, do a fair trade, if you will, fair agreement that services and outcomes to a lot of this way that we generate revenue and funds will essentially mean good things, so that it doesn't affect anyone's future. If anything, it would just look brighter for both.
Yeah, they call it a win-win. You want
Right.
everyone to leave like they feel valued. At the end of
Right.
the day, like you don't want to feel like you're getting taken advantage of. And if you walk away feeling happy and like, okay, the team supports me and they believe in me, like you're gonna want to perform for them better. You're gonna, want to do the extra things to help them be successful because, they show the faith in you and your abilities.
Right.
And it works both ways where it's like, the team wants to see the dedication that you have to them and that you're willing to work to get better and to
Right.
help their sponsors grow or whatever initiative they're trying to work.
Yeah. And Justin, I wanted to share this too. I was just thinking about this, like, for those who may know, an attorney, right? I mean, every attorney studies a different type of law, so it's not all the same, and their level of expertise are going to be different. But even just hearing like yourself, who is somebody that has played games or continues to play games and understands the level of really where the consumers are, I would even think like it's hard to even ask your dad or your uncle, right? Hey, can I get some
Oh yeah,
advice
no,
here?
like it sometimes it's
Like,
great when they're like when they just think, oh, I'm a real estate lawyer. You
right,
can look at my gamer contract. Like, yeah, you can look at it and you can like get an idea, but like, I that's the best thing. I love it when like a random musician client's like, oh, like, my cousin or my brother, whatever, looked at it, he's a lawyer. Like, okay, well, is he a music lawyer? Is he entertainment? Like, does he really understand what's going on here? Like
right, right,
publishing and royalties and mechanical licenses and all that. Like, does he really understand this stuff? Or can he really just get a gist of what's going on
right, right.
here? Like there's a reason why, when you do deals with, Universals and Sonys and Warners and,
Mhm.
these big institute, like there's just kind of a certain flow to them. There's
Mm,
a structure to them. And,
mm,
it's different than a real estate contract or a divorce or,
right.
personal injury or, any of these other fields.
Right, right. And because the esports, again, fairly new considering all the other entertainment outlets, that one, I mean, it's opened up more doors to other industries to come in, so like your music industry, for example, um, into that space, into a new modality too in itself. And what does that look like too? You know what I mean? That there's still that state of exploration, right? We're still figuring out and pioneering in many aspects to see how this production value can even just get bigger and more magnified. And in essence, trending more esports direction of where people are at to meet them in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the point that you're kind of touching on is like what happened with Travis Scott and Fortnite and with
Right.
Marshmallow and, kind of this convergence of, entertainment. And in Fortnite, they're also showing movies, and
Mm.
it's really kind of like all of these entertainment worlds combining. And as you said, it's kind of where the people are, where like, you're in your party with, your 5 other friends, your 8 other friends, and you're watching a Travis Scott concert, and I'm in New York, and you're in California, and he's in Indiana, and, you know, we're all over the world and we never met each other, but we've been playing Fortnite with each other for months or
Right.
who knows how long. And now we get to have a concert together and, listen to this new song. So it's like you're really just kind of bridging all of these worlds. And I love it. I mean, I'm so excited. I think that, this is stuff I've been onto for a while. Like, you have no idea. I've been telling my musician clients, like, Twitch, set up Twitch. Like, and now all of them are on Twitch, but it's like, I've been
Yes.
telling you for like 2 years that you should have
Yeah.
been doing this. And, now they're doing all the ideas that I had told them they should have done. And,
Yeah.
it's, I don't like to say I told you so, but, the shoe fits, right?
Right. The shoe fits. I was gonna say. Well, hey, I mean that's again, it's the meshing, it's the the overlapping, and I would imagine when you got so much melting together into one pot, if you will, that all the layers right now has to be almost either separated or organized or compartmentalized, so that way you can see things for where it's at, so that way everything that encompasses what somebody is signing has an understanding of, okay, there's so many different components and some of it may not pertain to you, period, but it's on a contract. um, and that piece right there, it can get a little bit overwhelming, right? It's like, holy crap, I'm reading this contract and it feels like I'm reading a book.
Yeah, they're 25, 30-page agreements. It's, some of them are 40 feet, just like
yeah,
depends how much, how long they want to put it.
right.
And sometimes if you get a 2, 3-page agreement, that's also a red flag. Like, there's more things discussed than 2 pages of stuff.
Right. And see, those are again the things to look for, right? The things to immediately just think, okay, your spider sense should be tingling right now.
Yeah,
um,
and just got to approach it. You have to kind of go with your gut and
mm,
trust your instinct. And that's always another advice. It's just like you just have to know that, okay, like something just doesn't feel right about this.
mm,
Like I should be able to have a lawyer or someone look this over.
mm,
Like I shouldn't feel like it's a burden or like uncomfortable. Like, how you were kind of mentioning,
mm, mm,
like it shouldn't be a situation where they're gonna pull the deal because you're gonna have your lawyer look at it. Honestly, when someone says, "Oh, I'm having my lawyer look at it, I'll get back to you," I love to hear that.
mm, mm,
That to me means you're taking this seriously. You understand the level and severity of what's going on here, and that you're smart enough to know that you need someone's help.
right.
To me, that's the way I look at it. It's like, oh no, not that you're going to be a problem. Like, no, that like you understand the ramifications and the seriousness of this transaction,
Right.
and that you know what you know. You know what they say, like, you know what you know and what
Right.
you don't know, kind of thing. So you know that this is important and you have to do this right. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that you learn over time and experience, and hopefully not from a bad experience.
Right. Exactly. And have you had situations where, I mean, you had to step in because
Oh man,
situation?
I mean, you see some of it on Twitter. Over time, your team's not paying, kids coming out making tweets, like,
Yeah.
Dexterito picking up on it. Like, it's a thing. It's definitely been a trend in esports over time.
Hmm.
But as you start to see less, like, kind of, I would say, kid run teams, more
Right.
of these that are backed by, like, bigger entities,
Hmm.
those kind of problems I feel like are happening less and less, just because there's a bigger pocket on the hook for things.
Hmm. Yeah. I was just gonna say, I'm sure stuff like that doesn't add value to the industry itself as a whole, right? You don't want to necessarily, even if you're not part of that organization whatsoever. I think it hurts the overall economy of it all, right? The whole ecosystem that esports essentially, hey, if you're committed to it and you want to essentially put your best foot forward and to reach out to some of these talented individuals, I don't think it does anybody any good that the way, either rant about it or get upset about it is that you take it to a social space.
Oh, dude, don't
Uh,
even. I've
yeah,
had issues where it's like, if you would have just emailed me back, answered my email, we would have paid you the money. But
yeah,
once you made the tweet, it's over. We
yeah,
can't just give you the money now. We
yes,
just can't. It's just not. You just really cause a lot of problems. And I think, my understanding is that some of these teams, there may be disputes. A lot of it doesn't go public because,
right.
as I've told clients, like once it goes public, like all bets are off. Like
Mm.
they have no incentive to really resolve this
Yeah,
because the publicity hit and the PR and all the negative was mostly going to outweigh any benefit from settling with you.
right,
It's like, go sue me, like, and as
right.
someone who, deals with this, litigation costs thousands and thousands of dollars. And depending on who you're suing, it could be a really uphill battle. And,
Mm.
if, I'm in a situation now with these kids that were, you know, better or worse, they had, worked for a team and tournament money this and salary owed. And, we sent letters and, everything was through the guy's corporation. It's like, there's really not much you can do. Like,
Mhm.
that's why you make a corporation so that if you do a business venture and it doesn't work, you know, your creditors can't come against your house and your car and,
Mhm.
put you on the street.
Right, right,
That's why these entities exist.
right,
You know, every state mostly has them because these are benefits that business people need. Your whole entire livelihood can't be on the hook for every move you make. You
right.
have to be able to protect your family and your state. And so it's like, okay. But then there's two sides, and like realistically, I don't think any of these people, I know it's a little off topic, intend
Right,
to not pay people. Like, I don't think you form a team signing kids saying, oh, I don't want to pay them. Like, I'm going
right,
to stiff
right.
them on money. The way this stuff works is, oh, money gets delayed. Sponsor says this, tournament does that, like things happen. And then it's, oh, now I'm 1 month late. Okay, I'll get you next month. And
Mm.
then something that's supposed to come in doesn't happen. Now you're 2 months late times 10 kit, and then
Right,
it spirals.
right.
And then you wake up and you're 7 months late and you owe thousands of dollars. And it's like, well,
Mm.
this has never happened. Like what am I going to spend $40,000 to catch up? And then I'm still going to have to
Right.
then be at zero. So it's just like,
Yeah,
it's a shame. And, as I've talked to some of these kids, it's like, after 1 or 2 months of not getting paid, you probably should say, well, I'm not doing this anymore.
I see.
Like,
Yeah,
okay, what? So I'm under contract, but like, you're not paying me for the contract. So, well,
I see.
like,
No,
we're at
it's
an
true. Yeah,
impasse
no,
here.
that
Like, what
yeah,
are they going to do?
yeah. No, that's a good point, and those are things that, again, I would say people may not be aware of,
Oh
right?
no, definitely. These kids were like, "Oh, like we didn't know." Like, I was like,
Right,
"Okay, well, like now you should know that if after 2, 3 months someone still owes you money and they still expect you to do X, Y, and Z for them, well, that's probably not going to work for you. And if you're more than happy to do what they want you to do, but you need to be compensated the way they agreed to. So it's like
right,
this is the quid pro quo. Like I do X, you give me Y.
right,
And for me to keep doing it and you to give me nothing, again, that's a red flag. Maybe you should be like, okay, well, whatever's going on is great, but like, we're not going to be playing for your team anymore. We're going to see what else is out there. Like, maybe a team wants to buy you. And now, it doesn't matter what this other guy owes you. You can just be like, okay, release me to this team and I'll release the money you owe me, and then they waive up, and it's like you can negotiate a deal if you have some leverage. But if you just keep doing and doing and doing, and he keeps saying, oh, the money's coming in tomorrow, like,
right.
who do you have to really blame?
Exactly, exactly. And that's where the representation, again, having somebody like yourself to call to or to lean on or to email to say, hey, look, the contract is going south and I see this going south very quickly. How can I be in a position where I can seek out some leverage opportunity to move into a different space where, maybe a better contract strikes, or at least it gets fulfilled.
Yeah, or at least you're competing in tournaments under your own, and you can get
Right.
sponsors on your own, and make money that way. Like,
Mm.
you're not tied to that team sponsors, or whatever obligations they have, because you're not on that team anymore, because they're not paying you to be on that team.
Yeah.
So it's just like, even the understanding of, like, okay, like, what is he gonna do to me? Like, understanding the repercussions of
Right.
what could actually happen to you if you were just to be like, hey, I'm a free agent. If you want to sponsor my team, DM me.
That's
Like,
right.
the owner of the team is going to see that. And he's going to be like, hey,
Yep.
what do you mean? Like, you're not a free agent. And be like, oh, well, you didn't pay me for 4 months. So, I'd like my money now. And
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point, Justin. The repercussions, just knowing when it's safe to back off, or when it's safe to walk away, right? Again, it's just purely awareness, and purely those are case by case situations where we can draw hypotheticals, but I feel like every case is going to be unique. To, like you mentioned earlier, to your point, every contract, yes, I can give you an estimated amount of length of how they are, but those words are not going to be all the same.
exactly.
And yeah, you need to pick up on what it is that each of those organizations are truly saying in that representation of that contract, to really understand what you're getting yourself into. But you really gave a great holistic picture of all of this. I think our gaming community, esports community, those that are watching us or watching this later on, feel free to leave comments. I mean, I'm sure there's something that we might be missing that you'd like to know more. But Justin's just a wealth of knowledge in all this. And again, um, this is all informational, so that essentially you can reach out for more opportunities to learn more, whether you're a student or just somebody that is aspiring to get to that next level. But Justin, we're almost out of time here. This is the part where I ask every guest speaker to leave us with some words of wisdom, something that can be action planned and done. If you could, please take us home and share with us.
Let me get a sip of water before my
Yeah.
pearly wisdom. I mean, I always like to say, and I kind of live by it, is just do it. I think you just have to kind of do it, plan and execute. I think a lot of people talk about what they're going to do or what they want to do and how they're going to do it, and
Mm.
that's half the battle, is planning and visualizing it. But sometimes you just have to do it, and maybe it's not initially going to be exactly how you want, or maybe like the 1.0 of what it's going to be. But until you start doing it and start trying things and start experiencing it, you're never really going to know. And, I think that really applies to life and your career. And, another kind of tidbit that builds off that is like, don't be afraid to reach out, like, just do it. Like, if you see something you want, like, go for it. Like, you see someone on LinkedIn you want to talk to, or a job you want, or, an opportunity or a client you want, just do it. Just reach out to them. Try to put yourself in that position. And worst comes to worst, you don't get it. They don't answer you. They say, "Oh, I'm not interested." Like, I've never in my life seen anyone be like, "How dare you reach out to me? Like, why would you LinkedIn message me or DM me? Like, who do you know?" And if they do, it's like, okay, well, like, nice to so sorry to
Goodbye.
bother you. Have a great day. If like if someone in this world is that much of a response to you, then it's like, so sorry to bother you, sir. Have a great day.
Right.
You keep it moving. So it's like, I think you just got to do it. You see it and do it.
Nice, nice. Well said, Justin. That was well said. Thank you. And I totally ditto that. That's such a great point. Planning and visualizing, then executing. I mean, those are all great initial steps just to even get you that space to just do it. Um, Excellent. Well, before we say goodbye, I did want to quickly give a quick shout out to the CSUDH Pep Band. So the music you heard in the very beginning of the intro was actually from our CSUDH Pep Band. So they debuted today with us. So that was a prior recording to our Pep Band. And so you'll hear more music, I'm sure, and feel free to follow them on their own Twitch channel as well. as they're ready to get themselves into the Twitch modality, which you're going to hear great stuff from them. Also, just a special shout out to Yusuf Andrews, who does all the production that makes us all look good. He's the person in the backstage, but he literally is doing, a team's worth of work to get this up and running. And Justin, I can't thank you enough, my friend, for coming on. We definitely have to do it again sometime. I feel like this hour went by fast. But this was all super helpful and informational, and you're teaching me and guiding me through this process as well. So without any further ado, everybody, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.